Shalom and welcome to Weekly Portion. Over the course of the last 8 months, I've been asked several times to kind of give a word or give my opinion about this absolute insanity that's going on around us. And up until now, I've been really hesitant. I just want to make sure that God is the one who gave me a word, and I'm not just sitting here and telling you what I think or what I feel. In the precept class I teach, we're actually studying Micah, Nahum, and Habakkuk. We're trying to get a better understanding of God's anger. And last Thursday, we unpacked Micah's third and last message. And in those scriptures, God gave me a perfect, not an easy, but a perfect word. Throughout his prophecy, Micah's message was aimed at the unrighteous leadership, the lying priests, and all the false prophets. He actually warned the people of their sins, and he told them of the judgment that is going to come. They'd witnessed God's judgment against the northern kingdom because of their idolatry, which had been allowed to spread to the southern kingdom of Judah. And then in chapter 6 and 7, Micah's very last message, God brings his indictment, his dispute to the people. In chapter 6, verse 3, God asks him what he's done to grieve or offend them, except act continually in faithfulness. He redeemed them from their slavery in Egypt, giving them victory over their enemies and bringing them into the land that he promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through covenant. People give their lame, sarcastic defense, saying God requires thousands of rams and 10,000 rivers of oils, and even our firstborn children as sacrifices. Essentially, they're telling God he's made it too hard to worship him with rules that were just impossible to follow. God never asked him for 10,000 rams or some ridiculous amount of oil. And he actually spoke out vehemently against child sacrifices, so he wouldn't tell them to sacrifice their firstborn. In verse 8, he tells them exactly what he requires. He requires them to do justice, to love kindness, which is loyalty, and to walk humbly with their God. And whether they know it or not, or whether they want to acknowledge it or not, people walk in the name of their gods. So therefore, their gods are known by their walk. So what does your walk make known about your walk, God? Does your walk, your halakha, does it match your talk? Because if not, one of them is a lie. In chapter 7, Micah gives us a description of the condition of the people in the land. He says, all the righteous people have perished. They're gone. Everywhere he turns, people were corrupt, and they even help each other to be corrupt. The very best of them were nothing more than briars and thorn bushes. No one was to be trusted. Not their civil leaders, not the religious leaders, their friends, not even their family. The entire society was nothing but unrighteous. In Romans chapter 1, verses 28 through 32, Paul describes exactly the same condition. He says, and just as they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer, God gave them over to their depraved minds to do the things which were not proper, being filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, full of envy and murder and strife, deceit, malice. They were gossips, slanderers, hater of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, without understanding. They were untrustworthy, unloving, and unmerciful. And although they know the ordinance of God, and that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they not only do the same, but they give hearty approval to those who practice them. Jerusalem had placed watchmen on their towers, prophets who were to warn of dangers, but instead lied to suit their own agendas. While their watchman was supposed to watch and warn them of danger, they were about to endure a very unwelcome visitation. The days for Micah weren't hopeful. They weren't. He was a righteous prophet, but he was going to have to endure God's judgment. Micah, the only thing Micah could rely on was his faith in God. The only one he could actually trust to help him to stand in those dark days. And while the inept watchmen sat on the walls, Micah proclaimed, but as for me, I will watch expectantly for the Lord. I will wait For the God of my salvation, my God, will hear me. He will shma. He will hear and act. The word for salvation is yesha. It means salvation, deliverance, and victory. It's where Jesus' name, Yeshua, comes from. Now, I know we're coming up to an election in less than a month. And I hear this a lot, and I read a lot, and I actually say it a lot, and I'm going to stop saying it. Just wait until November the 4th, and it'll all be over. Or just wait until November the 4th, and everything will be better. But instead of putting our faith in a man's victory based on the results of an election, we should be doing what Micah did. We need to be watching and waiting on the God of our salvation, on the God of our victory, to execute his justice in our nation. And we need to understand that it may not come in 4 years. It may not even come in our lifetime. But by faith, clinging to this, that our future peace will last a lot longer than our present turmoil. The old things will pass away, and everything will be made new again. So the only word I have for you is this. Like Micah, what will get us through our darkest times is our faith in God. It's all we have, but it's really all we need. He is our Shaddai. He is all sufficient. And when we cling to that truth, our confession will become Micah's confession. Mika mocha Adonai Baalim. Who is like you among the gods, who pardons iniquity and passes over the rebellious acts of the remnant of his possession? He does not retain his anger forever, because he delights in his unchanging love, his chesed, his faithfulness. He will again have compassion on us, and he will tread our iniquities underfoot. Yes, you will cast all their sins into the depth of the sea. You will give truth to Jacob and chesed to Abraham, which you swore to our forefathers from the days of old. In verse 15 of chapter 7 of Micah, God promised to perform miracles for them like he did when he redeemed them from Egypt. And the one event that led Pharaoh to let God's people go is when God passed over the houses who were covered by the blood of the Lamb. And as in that day past, in the days yet future, the sin of those who are covered by the blood of Yeshua, our Passover lamb, will be pardoned, because God will again pass over them, causing them to be taken away. That has been his covenant promise from the very beginning. And that is where our faith and that is where our victory lies. So thank you for joining me for Weekly Portion. If you'd like instant notifications when new videos are posted, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until next time, Shavua Tov, have a great week, and Shalom, Shalom.